Hello, YouTube. This is Q Dragon. I write, edit, and produce Brainstorm, and with me is the host of Brainstorm, Jack. Hello, Jack.
How do you do?
I'm good, and I wanted to start the first official episode of Braindrizzle with a big thank you to the audience for this support on episode 0, or the pilot. That was pretty awesome, hey, Jack?
Best train wreck I've ever been in.
There was a few comments about the length. Now, they're probably only going to get longer, but they're also available on iTunes, unless I mess something up. So check the video link if you prefer to get podcasts that way.
And if we're gonna put these on iTunes, maybe we shouldn't say hello YouTube. Or maybe we should say hello YouTube, but also pepper in other different sites, anything that isn't iTunes, like hellohomestarrunner.com, or something to the same effect.
Yeah, or maybe we should just start in the middle of a conversation. That sounds like the best idea.
Yeah, we could just start the show, and then I secretly record at some point, and you never know if you're being recorded or not.
That sounds like the worst idea ever.
I mean, come on, this is the best way we can to piss off our guests.
Yeah.
Never doing that show again.
Well, that's basically what the Nerdist podcast does whenever they have a guest. They just start in the middle of a conversation.
You know, almost like the equivalent of that campy, old-timey TV, low-budget discussion show thing, where you see the two people in the dark having a conversation, and then there's the music going, and then the lights go up, and then they turn as if they just now noticed that there's a camera there. They're just like, oh, hello, didn't see you there. I'm here with Dr. So-and-so, and we're talking about ergonomics, or, you know, what have you.
Yeah, but so next episode we'll have a more fitting intro. So just to recap, the episodes will be uploaded to YouTube and they should be as a podcast on iTunes. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff today, and all those links will be in the YouTube video description.
Yes. Yes, they will. Read them well.
So I thought I would start off our science news bits with some crowdfunding projects I caught this week.
Oh, yeah?
Do you remember NurdRage?
I do remember them.
He's a guy that makes chemistry, not really tutorials, but just sort of demonstration videos. And he's switching jobs, which means he may need to stop making YouTube videos.
But who else is going to show us why we shouldn't try things at home?
Yeah, it's literally how most his videos start. But he's actually doing an ambitious Indiegogo campaign to raise $250,000.
That is $250,000.
It certainly is.
I hope he can do it. Has it ever been done before?
Well, I mean, there have been other projects that have reached millions.
Ah, good.
It is a fixed funding campaign, so if you do contribute and then the amount isn't made, you'll get your money back. So if you like chemistry and you want to just chip in, you can try that risk-free.
Yeah, it's one more thing to bring to the small talk when you go to the office or bar, or maybe there's a bar that you all call the office.
Yeah, and the second campaign is a bit more modest. It's on Kickstarter, and it sort of relates back to our tobacco discussion last week. A scientist is trying to identify the genes in plants that make them perennial. So that means they sort of grow back each year, as opposed to being annual.
That would make gardening so much easier.
So the idea is basically identify the genes that make a plant perennial and then engineer those into crops like wheat and rice.
Oh, that would make agriculture so much easier too.
And so it's not even necessarily for it to make replanting non-issue, but crops that grow over many years get like larger root systems and they're more effective at absorbing nutrients.
And it would probably fight the soil erosion problem. Even though we have a lot of techniques to combat that, soil erosion is still an issue through anywhere there's agriculture, or anywhere we have soil erosion. It's always going to be a problem. You till up the land, you're going to lose some of it. And even when you put up barriers or do any kinds of smart farming, you can never negate that whole effect. All you can ever do is slow it down. So, I mean, anything that we can do to slow down soil erosion, which is a big issue, is a good step forward in my books. Because we're going to need that land, and there's less and less arable land every year, it seems like. That's why we have to keep cutting down forests and ruining habitats.
Exactly, and that goal is 15,000, so again, a lot more modest than the NurdRage campaign. But again, if you chip in and they don't reach their goal, you get your money back, so it seems like a pretty cool project. And this initial stage of the project is very basic, sequencing two plant genomes that are very similar, one's perennial and one's annual, and then just comparing the genomes and trying to get candidate genes.
It's kind of interesting that the one to save the world has a goal that is lower in dollar amount than the one to save a show.
Well, yeah, but again, the thing with the NurdRage one is he has to get, like, so much permits to, like, actually build a lab. That's basically what he's trying to do.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. The dudes who are trying to sequence those plant genes probably already have a lab. Okay.
There is either a company or university, you can check the details in the link, that's willing to give them the equipment. They just need to pay for the time and the supplies.
Alright.
And again, this 15,000 is literally just the first stage of the research.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
I'm just reading some of the perks. So if you donate money, you can get, like, plant seeds and stuff and little plant kits.
Oh, that is adorable! Ah, what does NurdRage give us?
Let me see. I'm not sure if it's the plants they're researching on, but the guy who's doing the research just has a greenhouse of little plants, so he's just sort of giving them out.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
Does NurdRage give us anything cool? I mean, do they give us, like, a fruits basket, maybe?
Let me see. $25 is ask a science question.
Really?
Well, he's a professional chemist, and the rest are just big amounts for, like, a corporate sponsor.
Maybe if the question is, can I have some chocolate? Theoretically speaking.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. That's okay. We're professionals, people.
We're professionals. We know what we're doing. We know exactly what we're doing.
We have no idea. Anyways, there was something else I was going to talk about. Or was it just the crowdfunding campaigns? I think it may have been just that. Jack, what have you been looking into this week?
I was kind of looking at science stuff, and I thought, okay, what kind of science would the internet like? And I'm just like, link on Science Daily for their cats section. So I clicked on that, and the first thing up there was Toxoplasma gondii. Ooh, brain parasites. Okay, awesome. So we're not going to talk about that.
And we've already sort of covered that in an episode of Brainstorm.
The only reason I find them at all interesting is that if I were to get tested and it turned out I didn't have Toxoplasma gondii, I would honestly be surprised, because I sure did eat kitty litter when I was 2 years old.
And you also live with a cat.
I am a herder of cats.
Are you going to become a crazy cat lady one day?
A crazy is debatable. Cat lady, yes. That is one of my life goals.
Well, we all have dreams.
Yeah, we all have dreams.
Anything else in their cat section?
I got bored and started looking at other stuff. A Harvard geneticist named George Church is saying after the blogosphere took some of his words, paraphrased them, twisted them, and ran the other direction, wielding them like scissors straight into traffic. He said that maybe there needs to be a little bit more science literacy in the developed world. Basically, here's what happened to this guy. He did this interview for this German magazine called Der Spiegel, and they asked him, hypothetically speaking, if you were to clone a Neanderthal, how would that go about, and blah, blah, blah. And he was just kind of using the idea of a cloned Neanderthal as an example to kind of illustrate some points about stuff, right? It was a hypothetical inside an interview that wasn't even about Neanderthals or cloning. This guy doesn't do cloning. He studies ways to alter genetics to, prevent and cure diseases. Anyway, the internet does not know what kind of point that he was trying to illustrate, because the blogosphere all decided that this dude's looking for candidates to put a cloned Neanderthal baby in. So a whole bunch of people think that we're going to clone a Neanderthal now.
I saw that on SourceFed and the official Discovery News YouTube channel.
So this guy, George Church, is just kind of like, most of you should have read these headlines that said Harvard professor seeks mother for cloned cave baby and realized that it was bullshit, but not enough people's bullshit emitters were struck by this because apparently there's not enough scientific literacy. Now, this is something that happens to culture because progress tends to move quicker than the information getting what the progress is out to the people moves. You go to school and you learn a bunch of science, right? Science keeps going. What a person's knowledge about what science is stops as soon as they leave high school, or as soon as they leave college, as soon as they take their final science class, they effectively stop learning about science. However, science continues to learn about the world.
Exactly.
So they're hearing all these different, like, headlines saying they can do this now, they can do that now, and it's blowing their minds because they only understand so much. And what they do understand is getting less and less memorable as the days go by because, when you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, these are people who went into business. These are people who decided to become, like, math teachers or art teachers or homemakers. They're managers at Denny's, or they're, like, PhDs in literature. They don't necessarily have an interest in science news. They don't have a reason to keep up with it because they've got too much other shit that they need to do. They've got kids to feed, they've got thesis to write, they've got a novel to publish. They're working 16-hour days. They're a CEO of a very small company, and it's their company. They're entrepreneurs. They're busy. They're freaking busy. They get, like, the little snippets. For all they know, we can clone a Neanderthal baby. I mean, it's been years since we cloned that last sheep. It seems like, in principle, we should be able to do the same with really, really old DNA by this point. It seems plausible to most people, and yeah, there is a need for greater science literacy. Fact of the matter is, though, science moves way faster than the classroom can currently keep up. We need living courses and living textbooks that are web-based, that are continuously being updated to account for new information.
Exactly. I mean, pretty much the only people that have the obligation to keep up with the literature are the people that are involved in the field.
Yes, exactly. Or nerds like you and me who, well, yeah.
Yes, also, if you want to keep up with the latest in science news, subscribe to Brainstorm at youtube.com/QDragon1337.
Hey, I just now put it together, but what Brainstorm does is what it can to help preserve science literacy. We look for the news for the people, compress it so they can actually get a dose of a whole bunch of science news. Watch our episode of Brainstorm every freaking week. You start to kind of get an idea of where science is at.
There are a lot of recurring themes in Brainstorm, and one of the sort of underlying philosophies is to not cover the front page news.
Yep, we dig for kind of the unsung heroes and whatnot. Actually, there's something we used to do on Brainstorm. Like, there was a couple of specials we did where we're just kind of like, okay, here's a BS story that's going around, here's the clarification on it. And maybe we should do something with this guy's story, just be like, here's what's actually up. So that people who have friends who are just kind of like, nope, they're cloning Neanderthal. I read it on the news. They can just be like, okay, you make my head hurt. Here's a video explaining why you're wrong.
Or we could even, like, if we just casually bring up the actual article or whatever, we could make that a segment of a future podcast.
We could. Well, we just brought it up right now. Or,
even better, I say we just cold call this church guy and see if he wants to interview.
Hey, alright. Yeah, let's do that.
Jack, find me his contact info.
Jeeves, get on it.
Yes, Jeeves. Our invisible butler.
Well, you and I are also both invisible. I can't see you. Can you see me?
Okay, he's mute then.
Very good.
I'm gonna try and have, like, guest, no guest, alternating between the weeks for as long as possible. But if the Neanderthal story is very misconstrued, I think it'd be very cool to have him on as a guest.
That'd be pretty cool. And if we run out of guests, we could have my sister on.
Again.
Okay, audience, if you don't supply us with sufficient guests, I'm going to find the most screwball people. Trust me, I know professional wrestlers.
Yeah, we'll just bring the most random-ass people we can find.
Hello, I'd like to introduce you to the manager at Burger King.
Definitely link me that article you found, also for the video description of the podcast, and then I'll see if I can find his contact info.
Yeah, definitely. I'll go ahead and link that to you. I actually found another article that kind of relates back to the whole Neanderthal thing. Increasing science literacy is really only part of the battle. According to this article, it actually just came out today, false beliefs persist even after instant online correction. Basically, even if somebody gets corrected about something, like they read something that's false and then immediately someone's just like, actually, that's wrong and here's why, they actually only come to believe the thing that is factually correct if they're the type of person who would have been like, yeah, it sounded like bullshit anyway, thanks man. If they really want to believe that that thing is true, or if their mindset or their worldview causes them to be predisposed to believe certain types of bullshit because it feels more intuitively correct, they're more likely to be skeptical about the person correcting them. It's just like, well, how do I know if you're telling the truth?
On a sort of basic level, that makes sense, because you read text, and if it feels right on a gut level, the other person is also just responding with text. source. I mean, if they link to like a research paper or a video or something, then I can understand switching over more.
What they did was they went through and they had 3 groups, right? And they showed one group, like an article that they wrote. Basically, it was about 574 people, and they made up a political blog and pretended like it was an actual political blog, but the researchers had actually typed it out. Sneaky, sneaky. And some of the information was, like, correct, but the researchers also peppered in, like, false statements. The story was about electronic medical records. They put in a bunch of false statements about who would be able to access these, and they tried to say that administrators, health insurance companies, and government officials would be able to go up into people's medical records and just read them all willy-nilly, right? And the participants were divided into 3 groups. Some of them were presented with immediately, this, and this is wrong, it's in italics and bold, and read which statements are wrong, and then below we're just kind of like, actually, these are the factual statements. Anyway, so a lot of others like read the blog post with the errors, and then they had them like, I don't know, do a puzzle for 3 minutes, and then they got presented with the exact same corrections. Like, they had to like read a secondary sheet saying, actually, this, and this was wrong from that thing you read just a little bit ago. And then the third group just like read the incorrect blog article without any correction at all whatsoever, and they found that as far as the people who received the immediate correction were just slightly more likely to be accurate in what they believed than those who received the delayed correction. The people who received the no correction were just kind of like, well, the internet said it must be true.
That's an issue online of picking a source. I think for the most part, I hesitate to use sources that we don't usually, especially on Brainstorm. Like, we have like 3 or 4 sites that are our main sources of info.
We don't stray far. I mean, when we want to see how far something's been proliferated, we have a couple of reputable pop science sites that we'll go through, and it's just like, okay, if it's on the pop science site, it's everywhere. You know, and then we have like our 3 or 4 sites that we go for the actual meat, and then we have other sites for filters. So we end up only going to about 6 or so sites, and we don't really stray from the clearest parts of the pond, you know?
Yeah, although the Yahoo news sites has had some surprisingly good hidden gems.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm always thinking that they must get like some exclusive stories sometimes, or something.
It could be that they look through the journals, and sometimes maybe one of the writers just happens to pick on something that no one else is getting, or maybe there's some schools that like to go to them directly, because, you know, if a university's name ends up in the news a lot, really good students are just kind of like, I'm gonna try to go there, and then they have a bigger crop to pick the cream from, so it makes perfect sense why they do that.
Science Daily and Phys.org almost always have like literal like bibliography references to the original articles. So, but I never read them.
We could be reporting crap for all we know. Okay, maybe that's a little over the top.
For the most part, Science Daily and Phys.org and most of the sites we research from seem pretty reputable.
They are.
One day, I'll read an actual journal article and understand it. One day.
One day.
Because, yeah, I started listening to a bunch of science podcasts since we started this one, and 2 of them are, like, just straight reading journals. I'm like, what's going on?
Oh, God. You didn't write any of this.
It's, like, even more confusing because you're listening to it, so you can't reread stuff.
Yeah, you can't, like, pause and look something up.
That's lame. I wish there was a way to, like, I guess that's what Science Daily does, is translates journal articles into a more understandable language. It'd be cool if there was, like, software that could do that in real time. Like, you'd paste an article, and it would say, oh, this is just a protein. Oh, this is a certain strain of E. coli or whatever.
That would be cool. Hey, you know the people who do, you know, the version of Wikipedia that's in, like, super basic English?
Yeah, simple Wikipedia.
Yeah, simple Wikipedia. Get those people on it.
Automatic simplifying.
If there's somebody who writes for simple Wikipedia, consider possibly doing that, except with science journals. That would help out Dr. Church a lot. It would help him.
I guess it can't be completely blamed on the media, because in general, scientists are pretty bad at communicating their ideas.
A brunt of their experience comes with communicating with fellow students, communicating with their instructors, communicating with other scientists and other researchers, technicians, people who have a background information. And then when they come to somebody who has no background in that, it's like me trying to talk about the finer points of the Chronicles of Narnia with somebody who saw Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the movie, once 5 years ago.
The really old Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, yeah.
Yeah, they have no clue who Shasta is. They don't know what Charn is. They don't know that the White Witch's name is Jadis. Calormene, what's that?
So me, basically, you're describing me to a T.
Yeah, it's freaking hard to do. And a lot of times they don't necessarily have occasion to do that because people who do science tend to be
busy?
Yeah, very into what they're doing, you know? Kind of like the people who are too busy to learn about science, except too busy to learn about something that isn't science. Too busy to learn about how the media works, how to talk to people, how to communicate with a larger group of people that don't already have a background info on what you're talking about. Very seldom does anybody run into an occasion where they have to do that. Sure, you might run into a social occasion where you end up, at a bar with a fireman, a research scientist, a bum, a criminal, and an elementary school teacher.
Wait, let me stop you, because this sounds like a setup for a terrible joke.
And a rabbi. That's not a joke, because there was no rabbi. Or priest. But the fireman is also a shaman.
A fireman and a research scientist and a hobo walk into a bar. Yeah, and a rabbi. For good measure.
So a shaman fireman, a hobo, a criminal, a school teacher, and a research scientist are all sitting at a bar, talking about stuff. Research scientist starts talking about something technical, sees a bunch of blank looks, changes the subject, and they all find common ground. In social situations, if you don't find much success with a particular subject, you move on. Everybody moves on at that point. Unless you're me.
And me too. Like, I do that too. One of my favorite XKCD comics is the joke is every research scientist should spend a year writing for simple Wikipedia.
That's where I got the idea, man. I was gonna try to pass that idea off as original, then I was gonna get all the chicks. Thanks a lot, Will Hunting.
I don't get that reference either.
I don't even like apples.
You lost me.
It's from the movie Good Will Hunting.
Man, I am just totally disconnected from society.
Matt Damon was in it.
So?
Got into some fights, and there's also Robin Williams.
Anyways.
He was a math prodigy.
I should probably watch that movie.
He had a therapist. Yeah, you should. It's actually pretty good.
So, I don't know, do we have anything else to talk about?
Yeah. Apparently, when lightning strikes, people who get migraines are more likely to get one. Within 25 miles, I think, is where they figured this one out statistically. Basically, they had a whole bunch of people who get, headaches and migraines self-report, got a migraine this day at this time, when I live in this location, and then they cross-referenced all the frequencies of migraines for all those areas with the frequency of lightning strikes. They actually compensated for other atmospheric stuff that tends to go along with lightning, because lightning tends to happen in the context of a thunderstorm, and thunderstorms are associated with shifting barometric pressures, difference in humidity, precipitation, all that good stuff, and
also loud noises.
Loud noises, too. And they figured out that apparently the lightning itself has its own effect, independent of all the other stuff that happens.
I wonder why that would be.
Yeah, they don't know yet. I mean, they didn't figure this out by being the electromagnetic shiftiness affects the brain, which might cause a migraine, so therefore lightning causes migraines. They didn't figure it out with the brain. They figured it out with math and statistics showing...
That is odd.
No clue why. They're just now finding this correlation.
Speaking of brains, actually, we have the show Brainstorm. We're doing the Braindrizzle podcast, and I thought as a sort of segment of the podcast every once in a while, we would get rid of our brain crack. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's not a hip new drug. That is a concept of sort of ideas that get stuck in your head, and then you never execute them, so you get, addicted to the thought.
Having good ideas.
So we'll link the original video that was a concept, I'm pretty sure, made up by Zay Frank, the famous video blogger. So I have some brain crack.
I have so much brain crack. You kids smoke cigarettes? I got something for you to try.
But so I thought in an episode where we don't have a guest, we would just list off a few ideas just to get them out there. Sound good?
Yes.
You go first.
You go first.
Okay, so I'm going to do two. The first idea isn't really original. It's based off the Asimov science fiction universe. Basically, in the Asimov universe, almost all food is based on heavily engineered and processed yeast.
Got it.
It's yeast processed to be beef, fish, eggs, strawberries, you name it. So basically, I've just started doing a little research on how you could maybe possibly do that.
That would be neat.
Engineering it to produce myosin from muscles, hemoglobin, other proteins. You could just grow vats of yeast, process it, and it would taste kind of like beef.
You could get bacon-flavored yeast. Then, we could finally have bacon-flavored beer.
I'm sure there's already bacon-flavored beer.
Rats. See, that was my brain crack right there, bacon-flavored beer.
Oh, wow. Damn.
Ah, rats. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. So my second bit of brain crack is, if you're familiar with organ-on-a-chip technology, that's like essentially a piece of plastic with little microfluidic channels aligned with usually human cells, and they're meant to sort of simulate organs.
Yep, those things are neat.
We've done a few stories involving them, like the lung chip has lung cells and blood cells, and there's like a vacuum channel that expands and contracts.
Man, this is going to be great. Link a whole bunch of those things together and take my Lego building to the next level.
But my idea was construct a really densely celled structure, but fill it with cow mammary cells. So basically like an artificial udder.
And put these artificial udders into the bottom of bowls. Plastic bowls with popular cartoon characters on them. Stick them in the fridge every night, and every morning, perfect bowl of fresh milk to pour your cereal in.
Not quite. Because it would need, like, circulating artificial blood.
That would be all in the bowl.
I guess you could do that. But basically my idea is that cows are really fucking big, and this way, 100% of the nutrients you're pumping into the system go toward the cells that actually produce the milk, and none of the other cells.
That would be awesome. Milk would be so cheap. Have I mentioned that I love milk?
I love milk too. Also, not only does it get these ideas out in the world, but if anyone ever makes them, we have recording that we came up with it first.
Yes. I came up with the instant cereal bowl.
So if anyone wants to make the artificial udder or beef-flavored yeast, get in touch with me.
And do we have powdered toast yet?
Powdered what?
Powdered toast.
Don't you mean breadcrumbs?
No, powdered toast. Generation gap. Ren and Stimpy.
I used to watch Ren and Stimpy. That was when I was very little and I don't remember much.
Powdered toast man. Versus liquid waffles woman.
Okay.
Waffles.
So, that's sort of my brain crack for this week. What do you got, Jack?
Let's see, what do I got? Quite a bit, actually. Most of my ideas are along the lines of make an album, write a book. You know, here's this idea for a screenplay, here's that idea for a TV show. None of which I've gotten to yet, because I just have so many building up. What happens with me is it starts out as a small executable idea, and as I play with the idea more and more, the idea gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Take a fan fiction that I've been working on for a long time, for instance. I still don't have the first post up, but I've been working on it consistently for years, still in the research phase of building this massive world. I finally decided, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna let that go, and I'm just gonna, work on this fan fiction until 2033, when it becomes a public domain and I can just publish the thing.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's Chronicles of Narnia, by the way. Chronicles of Narnia fanfiction is gonna be really, really awesome. Anyway, the basic idea is, I definitely have a perfectionist urge when it comes to working on things, and I get a lot of brain crack. If I just let that perfectionist urge run wild on one project, whenever I come to a standstill on other projects, or I feel burnt out on other projects, I can go to the fanfiction, keeping it in the realm of hobby to be published someday. You know, I can basically always have something to get the juices flowing, so when I get stuck or feel uninspired on a separate project, I can come to this, work on it for a while, and go back to the other thing fresh off of something that I've worked on, because always more ready to go when you're going from one project to the next than if you go off of a stagnant point where you're doing nothing and then try to get into a project. Restarting the car versus just taking your foot off the brake.
I think I really need one of those background projects, because I have so many ideas, and it's I want to do all of them, but I have no time.
Yep, so that's how I deal with my brain crack. I call it brain methadone. Brain hab.
The other problem is that I always want to even release it in chunks. I'm a bit of a perfectionist like you, but I also want to get it out as quick as possible. If I have ideas for a story, I'm going to say, okay, I'll just release every chapter as I write it, instead of waiting for the whole thing to be finished.
That's something you can do with fanfiction. If you do a serial fanfiction, put it on fanfiction.com, and you can do it chapter by chapter. You don't even have to know what's going to be in the next chapter, and that way you're always putting out something. And the best thing anything about fan fiction, if it's just published anonymously online, or if you just keep it to yourself even. Any ideas that you have, you can put it in the fan fiction and test them out to see how they work in a structured story before you put it in something that you're serious about.
I don't really have anything to write fan fiction about. All my ideas are just original.
Well, you're an Asimov fan.
A lot of my ideas are kind of heavily Asimov inspired, but I mean, I guess it could be in the Asimov.
There you go.
But the Asimov universe has like very specific tones and structures. Like, I don't know.
Ah, come on. So does the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, I guess it just...
I'm still tackling that. Heck, I'm taking the specific tones and structures and bending them to my will, making them my bitch. That's what's so fun about this. Fans of the series will probably hate my fanfiction because I will be ruining so many childhoods with it.
If I tried to make Asimov fanfiction, like, I would find that too daunting, because I'm like, it's Asimov, I don't want to ruin Asimov.
You could go to a sci-fi convention, show people your fanfiction, and see if you can outrun them. And I could tape it while humming yakety sax. Okay, 3 fell over. Okay, one of them's on a bench, he's got an inhaler in his hand.
And then there's a gorilla somehow.
And whoa, there's this one cut dude who's really fast. Watch out, man. Watch out.
I gotta start writing, man. I was gonna write today, and then I'm like, I have English. And then I didn't do any English.
Yeah, that's... Yep.
And also, with an original story, I have no idea where to post it. Like, you can't really post it on YouTube. And I used to have a website, but I lost that because I didn't keep up payments. So is that really all you have for Brain Crack this week?
I want to try to do a dubstep psychobilly fusion dance megamix. It's all kinds of absurd stuff.
I'm sure.
Once I get something that is good for brain crack, that I wouldn't have to expound upon like a dirty hipster. Well, one idea I had was a new type of networking site. That's kind of like a free OkCupid, except it matches you up with potential work partners for like online collaboration. Like, let's say that you have a banjo, but you really need somebody who can play the spoons. And you can find a spoons player on something that's like OkCupid.
I see. There would be a mix between OkCupid and LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is more professionals, not necessarily creative stuff.
Yeah, it's just basically like LinkedIn, except more,
Or like a collaboration-oriented Elance.
But it works like a dating site. Like, it uses kind of more that model, so you can look through profiles and try to match up. Because what you're looking for is a work partner, not necessarily an employee, not necessarily somebody that you can hire to do something for your business. Like, you're not looking for someone you can hire to build your website, you're looking for somebody that you could collaborate with and work with programming.
That's a good idea. We're gonna get that stolen instantly.
Then I'll be able to find a fucking spoons player, finally.
Well, ironically, the only way that site could be made is if it already existed.
What?
Well, I mean, if the site existed, you could find a coder to make it. Did it blow your mind?
Extensively.
Well, on that note, I think we're gonna end this episode of the podcast. It's probably already, like, double last week's.
It is. Take that!
Hopefully you still enjoyed it. So just a review on YouTube, on iTunes. All the links that we talked about are in the video description, and we'll see you next week.
And like us on Glimpse Science Network so that you can also get updates for when these things post, because I know half y'all aren't gonna remember.
We have the YouTubes, the Twitters, and the Facebook.
We'll bug you.
Next week we should have a guest, our first guest.
Yay!
But I won't say who yet. It'll be a surprise.
Oh, goody. Do I get to know who?
Yeah, I already told you.
No, you didn't.
Bye.
Okay, after the show. Bye, guys!
See ya.